Good morning, creative coders, or maybe it's afternoon when you're watching this, but it's the morning when I'm recording this. This is a video that I'm going to do just to give you the week one in review. We've completed week one, or maybe are about to, or it's Friday of week one, so we'll call it a time for reviewing. In this video, I'm going to go through everything that you should have done this week, so make sure you watch it to the end, because even if you think you're done for the week, maybe there's something you forgot or didn't realize I needed you to do. So make sure you watch to the end. I'm going to go through everything kind of quickly because this is a video and there's more information elsewhere, but hopefully this will answer your questions and get you kind of prepared for the next week. So overview, first of all, for the tasks. So these are things that weren't necessarily assignments, but things that you need to have done this week. One of them was join our Discord server, and closely related to that is use it. There's a lot of activity in Discord. Please join in on that activity. But specifically, there's an opportunity for there's I think more opportunity for discussion. So please use it. I posed a couple of questions a few days ago as a reflection on the instructions exercise, and nobody answered my questions yet. You all left me hanging here. So go to the instructions channel and you'll see a couple of threads that I started. I started these threads to make it easier to reply to these questions. So please do that. I'm going to pose similar questions in the Ransom Letters and Concrete Manifesto channels as well, just to give you a chance to reflect on it. It's a conversational space, so I would love for you to use it for that purpose, so please do. All right, so some other things. I'm sorry, I'm doing this live, so sometimes my little windows here don't update when I want them to. Okay, so sign up for GitHub. That's a big one, and we're going to be using GitHub a lot this semester, so please do that. But mainly, it's a way for you to access this creative coding repository, which is something that you have by now cloned and started working with. So just a reminder, this is the repository, and what you will do is you go here and then you open it with GitHub Desktop. That makes a copy of it for you. It actually is a fork. I talked about this earlier and I wasn't sure if it was forking or cloning, but you are forking it, so go ahead and that's fine. So you are, and actually I can find all of you by seeing your forks here of my code, so that's great for me, and hopefully it makes sense for you as well. So I have a few more things to say about GitHub though, because there are some there's some challenges to working with GitHub if you are new to it, but also just this whole process is kind of an unusual process. So I want to go through this whole process and make sure you're clear on this step. And this workflow that I'm about to put on the screen here, this is something you'll be doing over and over and over again for every project from now on. And you'll get, if it's not already habitual and kind of second nature at this point, it probably will be in a couple weeks, hopefully. So just your basic workflow, you remember, is you're going to be editing and saving and then previewing. So this is the basic kind of, day by day, like as you're working on a project, as you're thinking about a project, as you're drafting a project, right? This is the coding part. There might be a pre-step to this, by the way, where you might want to, and I do encourage you to draw things out, like I was doing the other day with my concrete manifestos. Drawing things on paper is a great way to get started as a pre-step. But once you start coding, this is the coding part of it, the edit and saving, and then previewing. This is something that's probably accomplished with Sublime Text if you like using Sublime Text, maybe VS Code if you like that better, or something else. And you're going to be previewing it in Chrome. I mean, Chrome is a good browser. I use Firefox. Chrome or Firefox are good. It really doesn't matter that much as long as you can see what it looks like after you've made a change. That's the idea. So then when you're ready, like once you've decided it's good enough to call that a new version of this project, then you do the Git part of this, which is committing and pushing. So a commit, remember, that's the kind of super save where you're going to have a little box on the GitHub desktop where you type what the changes that you made, and then once you're happy with that, you push it to your public repository. So this is kind of your I'm done with it step, or I'm ready to show it to someone step, I guess. It's not, there's actually one more step, but this is one that is your kind of entryway to putting it out into the world. And then once you do that, once you get ready to view and share it, so you're ready to view it on the web now, not in your repository, but on the web, that is again going to get back to using Chrome to do that. Now this is the part that a couple people got tripped up on, and there are two things I think that are happening, and so I want to talk about two of them. One of them is easy to get around, the other one is a little bit awkward to get around, so we'll see if I can explain both of them. One of these is to find the web version of your code you need to understand URLs, understand how, like, learn how to recognize patterns in these two URLs. And there is a pattern here. The one at the top is how you would look at it if you were just browsing the repository on github.com. And that's where you will see that your code is there. You can confirm that the code is there. And then the one on the bottom here is the public URL. This is what I would send you if you wanted you to see my my concrete manifesto in action, or my ransom letter in action, to see what it actually looks like as a web page. So there is a pattern here, and you need to learn how to recognize the pattern. I've highlighted different parts of it here. So the orange parts, right? So do I have my cursor here? I don't have my cursor. Yeah, I do. So okay, so the creative coding, week 1, 1.2 ransom letter, index.html, those are the folders. Those are the directories. Those directories exist on your computer in that local version of your repository. They exist in the hosted version of your repository, and they are also used to produce the web page. So it's creative coding, week 1, ransom letter, index.html. The blob main is just used in the GitHub side. So you can delete that if you want, and then rearrange the front part of it, and you're good. You notice there's github.com for the repository URL and github.io for the public one, and then the username is the same for both of these. So Zach Whalen is the same on both of them. So that's the basic thing. So there is one other thing that sometimes is happening for some people, and I'll show you what I think is a workaround for this. This is what happens if you have committed, you've pushed, but you don't see the changes showing up in the web URL, the public github.io side. And I don't know what happens. Sometimes these seem to get stuck, because what happens when you upload your code there and you've committed it, you pushed it, GitHub Pages is the kind of back end here that's supposed to take that, process it, and then like deploy it as a web page. Sometimes that doesn't work, and I don't know why, or it doesn't happen. It doesn't trigger that. It might be something that you've set differently in your repository, or who knows. But I think this might be a workaround for it. So if you look at, if you've ever built it successfully at all once, you should see at least one of these workflow runs recorded, pages build and deployment. And what you can do is actually look at a deployment, even if it was 2, 3, 4 days ago, and you can rerun it. So there's a button here at the top that says rerun all jobs, and these are the jobs, right? So these are, it's going to take a minute or two here to do this whole thing, but this will let you see it in action. And if there are any errors or it doesn't complete for some reason, you should see it. You should see it if it completes, and then you should see it, if there's something wrong with it too. So I don't know why this sometimes happens, but this seems to be a workaround for it. So please try that if you are in that situation where you've pushed your code but you don't see the live version updating yet. It could be there. I saw a couple of other ideas on a Stack Overflow thread with people having similar issues. So maybe there's some other things we could try, but try this first, and then we'll see how that goes. All right, so going back into my, get back into my other slides here. So in terms of this week, it hasn't just been about coding. There have been some other things that I want to make sure you learn. I mean, this is still not updating. There we go. So Codecademy lessons, right? So there's Codecademy lessons on several things that I hope you've gotten started with. I'll take a look through those in a minute, but it's HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and just kind of getting into the entry level with these in Codecademy. There is a lot in Codecademy. You don't have to do a lot in Codecademy, but I think it's useful to have some kind of self-paced instruction in this that I would be augmenting if we were in person with in-class lessons and demonstrations. It's a little hard to do all that in the online version, so I'm relying on Codecademy to help with a lot of that. I think it's going well. I think it's helping. So these are what I want you to look at for this one. So for HTML, right, you don't have to do the whole thing. So I'm like 16% of the way through. Just focus on the lessons, because the other things like the quizzes and the project are locked unless you pay for it. So for elements for HTML, right? So if you can do the introduction to HTML and the document standards, I think that's pretty good. I think that's a good start for learning HTML. This is all part of the elements and structure section, and then tables, forms, semantic HTML. I don't think you really need those for this class. So I would say don't go ahead with those unless you feel like it, unless you're interested. You're always, it's free, so do whatever you want to. In terms of CSS, I do recommend a little bit more with CSS. I think you'll need some of this to be successful with the concrete manifesto. So make sure you go through the syntax and selector stuff. This is just the basics of CSS. The box model is probably helpful as well, and the typography is probably helpful as well. So the box model has 2 lessons. That has to do with layout, and typography has to do with how things look. Really, between those two, typography is probably more important, even though it's kind of later on in their lesson structure. I think it's probably more useful for you as far as completing the concrete manifesto or the ransom letter exercise. Box model stuff is good if you want to do anything layout related, like I did with my examples. Okay, so then for the JavaScript stuff, we're going to be continuing with JavaScript, and I will be providing instruction for a lot of this, but I will also continue to augment it with what's in Codecademy. And if you just want to get started, basically I want you to understand a little bit about syntax with this JavaScript and the idea of behavior. So if you can do the introduction to JavaScript and the variables lessons, I think that's good for this week. And all of these together, each of them takes about, it's hard to predict how long it takes, because if you get stuck on something, that might take a long time. But if you kind of go through it at a pretty normal pace, I think each of these is about 30 minutes, maybe, give or take. So I think it's a reasonable amount to try to get accomplished in a week. But do your best with it. If you have a problem or you get stuck or something, you can always ask for help in Discord. Ask your peers who are working through it. All right. So something else that I wanted you to, I was trying to reveal those one at a time. Something else I wanted you to make sure to learn about is concrete poetry. So concrete poetry is obviously related to the Concrete Manifesto work, but I wanted you to not just kind of use this as an excuse to do a certain kind of coding, but actually I want you to learn a little bit about the poetics of concretism, or the aesthetics of materiality of text. That's really a big part of what's going on here, and this is something that will inform our approaches to other projects in the future, but it's part of this bigger aesthetic, cultural, literary context for the kind of creative coding that I'm hoping you will explore. So I've got a lot of things in here, a lot of links. Check these links out. I put these in here on purpose, so please take a look through it. If you're looking for more examples of creative coding, not creative coding, but concrete poetry, kind of in the real world, the Marijuana Quarterly, I think, is a great example of just kind of underground DIY concrete aesthetics. And this, these are fascinating pieces of concrete work on their own, but they also kind of have a gritty, kind of edgy vibe to them, which I think is pretty cool. So check that out. And similarly, for week 4, day 4 of week 1, I've got some notes here about data humanism and thinking about yourself through data and thinking about data as an aesthetic. This is, we could do a whole class on data visualization, which we aren't really doing here, but there's a whole art to this, a whole field of study for this. And I just want you to get a little taste of what it's like to think of yourself quantitatively and then try to represent that self-knowledge in some way. And so how you do that, how you approach that, there's so many options. In this case, it's a project as opposed to an exercise, so I'm not giving you step-by-step instructions for how to complete it. I'm hoping that you will come up with something interesting on your own and see what you can come up with, and share it, of course, in Discord. I look forward to seeing these. I've so far been really impressed with the Concrete Manifestos and the ransom letters. I know that I was asking a lot I knew going into this that I was asking a lot out of you, kind of out of the gate, but you all have risen to the challenge, and I'm really pleased to see that. So I am looking forward to seeing what you do with this. It's much more open-ended. I don't have a sense of kind of minimum or maximum in terms of length or content or whatever. It's really up to you and your sense of what looks good and what conveys the sense of yourself that you're trying to get at. But so to do that, again, think about it, look at some of the examples, watch this TED Talk by Georgia Lupi, learn about her Dear Data project, look at these different things that other people have done and see what you want to use, see what seems like a good idea that you could try yourself. And that's how we create art. We kind of see what's already been done and then try to build on it. All right, so in terms of this week's assignments, these are the things that are just kind of the absolute, to-do list, checklist, make sure you've done these things kind of thing, right? So instructions, that was the first assignment, make sure you've done that. If you didn't already turn it in Canvas, please do that. But if you, I can find it in Discord, that's not a big deal either way. But if you can, in Canvas, add a note explaining what you did for that. The ransom letter exercise, of course, which was Tuesday's exercise, our first real coding project, Concrete Manifesto, which was Wednesdays, and then the self-portrait, which is ongoing now, I guess. I say now because it's Friday, and I've set the due date for this to be Sunday. I think the sooner you can do it, the better, but bear in mind, I won't be around much online this weekend because I will be camping. So you'll be a bit more on your own until Sunday afternoon, and so if you are still finishing things, then I might be online to be able to help you with those things as you're finishing them. A couple other things too, the rebranding exercises. I added some explanation for this one. It's a little minimal. I don't know if a lot of you are going to try this anyway, so I didn't spend a lot of time putting this together. But I've got an idea, and the idea is basically to take some existing website and then lightly hack it to make it look kind of different. Not really hack it, but like hack the design, make your own copy of it, and make it something that undermines or critiques that company. And then finally, so I mentioned this on the instructions for yesterday, or today, I forget when, but the notebook. This is an ongoing assignment, something that you will be contributing to little by little throughout the semester. I don't need to see it until June 16th or so, whenever the end of the semester is, but you should add to it at least once a week. Get something in by now if you haven't. I would say having an entry for each assignment and exercise would make sense to me, but at least something for the week to kind of summarize, reflect on, and kind of own the things that you've accomplished this week. Okay, so that's a lot. It's a busy week. There will be 3 more busy weeks and then 1 slightly less busy week. But that's the way these things go in the summer term. That's the week in review. So if you have questions about any of this, today I'm recording this Friday morning. I will be online until I won't be leaving for my camp out until later this afternoon. So if you have questions, you can send them to me today. If you send it to me after I've left or whatever, I might not be able to respond until later. So don't. That's not me ignoring you. That's just me not even knowing that you sent me a message. I really don't know what my cell service is going to be like out there, and I'll be busy on the camp out, so I won't have time to be, on my phone helping you all with stuff that much anyway. So do your best with it. I'll be back eventually. Okay, well, that's it for the week in review. Thanks for watching this video all the way to the end. And if you have questions about things, please ask. Good luck finishing up things and working on the self-portrait project. I look forward to seeing what you come up with. All right, bye.